This is American Forked.
That may have been the last shot Michael Jordan will ever take in the NBA.
Maybe not. Good morning. Air Jordan is taxiing for takeoff. Legendary basketball great Michael Jordan is getting ready to return to the game he loves today, Tuesday, September 11th, 2001.
From NBC News, this is Today with Katie Couric and Matt Lauer, live from Studio 1A in Rockefeller Plaza.
And good morning. Welcome to Today on a Tuesday morning. I'm Matt Lauer.
And I'm Katie Couric. What's that Dolly Parton song? Here we go again.
Yeah, unbelievable. We've been talking about this for a long time. He retired from the game back in 1993 to try his hand at baseball. Then he returned in 1995. But he walked away again in 1999 after leading Chicago to 6 championships. Now the 38-year-old has been working out all summer, playing some pickup games against other NBA players. Outside his restaurant in Chicago on Monday, he told the Associated Press and other reporters, quote, "I'm doing it for the love of the game."
American 11, the American on the frequency. How do you hear me?
This is a News 4 Today news break.
Look at this day we have here in the nation's capital. Absolutely gorgeous out there, 65 degrees if you like it, a little bit on the chilly side. We'll check the forecast and the rush hour coming up shortly. Good morning, everyone. I'm Barbara Harris, and it's Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. In the news, work crews will start installing monitoring equipment today in a northeast Washington neighborhood, looking for signs of gasoline contamination. The gasoline leaked from a service station on the Maryland side of Eastern Avenue near Riggs Road 10 years ago. But now tests are being done to see if the gas has spread over the district line. In a story first on 4, police in Prince George's County are looking for more people who may have been involved in an unusual theft ring. The suspects are accused
American
of stealing
11, if you hear Boston Center, ident, please, or acknowledge.
Because he was just heading that way, yes.
Yeah, we've taken the American back because he appears to have turned.
Yep.
And Mr. Lauer as well. Let's see, okay? Let's take a look, kids. We've got Hurricane Aaron, winds at 90 miles per hour, 430 miles east-southeast of Atlantic City. It's moving north. Look for riptides and heavy swells along the northeastern Atlantic coast. Tropical Depression number 7 could be Felix, 35-mile-per-hour winds, 890 miles east of the Leeward Islands, moving west-northwest, so we're keeping an eye on that. And there's a low-pressure system off the coast of Florida that may become a tropical system as well. So a lot of activity in the Atlantic today. That's what's going on around the country.
And again, we don't have a verified altitude.
As he
We
said,
think he's a
anyone
level
that's
2 natural. We're trying to verify that.
in this country is one too many.
No, just
So,
flying X-ray.
we'll continue
There's no
to
code
watch
on the guy. He's flying X-ray, and we
numbers
approve
and
that.
more important
Oh, he's
statistics
the primary
coming
right
up
now.
this Friday.
Right over
He'll watch
King Cloud.
those. His advisors will
Can I give you
advise
your
him, and
take
he'll
on?
make decisions in the coming weeks.
Commerce Secretary Don Evans. Mr. Evans, thanks very much.
Thank you, Matt.
17 past the hour. Just kidding.
All right, Matt. Thank you. Tim Russert is NBC's Washington Bureau Chief and moderator of Meet the Press. Hi, Tim.
Morning, Katie.
Obviously, the Bush administration is taking the offensive on the economy right now. They're putting out Don Evans, who's Commerce Secretary's appointment on the economy. We heard David Gregory.
American 11, 75, and
employment figures came out on Friday.
right now, we don't have any idea, but he was to the northwest of Albany, and now he's down by Sparta, Newton Speed.
George Bush's
Very
closest
rapidly.
friend in Congress,
We
Congressman Ron
believe
Paul,
he's on the descent. That's why he's
now we're all contacting ATC.
Okay.
They are all
Anything else in the flight attendant?
So far what I've got, the number 5 flight attendant's been stabbed, but she seems to be breathing. The number 1 seems to be stabbed pretty badly, and she's lying down on the floor. They don't know whether she's conscious or not. The other flight attendants are in the back.
Well, there are cycles of economic growth and decline. With the House
And that's as far as I know. It seems like the passengers in the coach might not be aware of what's going on right now.
Teams and a 5,000-seat stadium. And later today, we should get our first look at the new Capitol Visitor Center. Not the center itself, but a model of it. Construction of the center began in June of last year. It's expected to open in the year 2005. We're going to come back with our forecast. You'll want to hear it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
How old are they?
20 months.
Thanks for bringing them down. Where you guys from?
New Jersey.
Okay, you guys answer everything together. That's great.
It's a trained act. I like it. Let's check your weather, see what's happening. And Florida downpours. We've got flood watches for southwestern and southern Florida.
What's happened in the river since then, Matt?
Well, heat builds up on people. Did heat build up on the Bush administration because of their views on global warming, Arctic drilling where they had to look and say, wait a second, we have to do something that is viewed as positive for the environment. Let's go after GE.
No, you'll have to ask them. But what basically happened was in the last days of the Clinton administration, they laid out a plan.
We'd have to vector you towards the aircraft.
Okay, so you'd want to control the intercept because
we have to, yeah. Until you guys pick them up on primary radar.
Okay, so you have a general location as to where he is?
We're still tracking right now.
You're tracking.
Stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're turning to the airport. Says just the opposite thing.
Who's trying to call me here?
On the side of common
American
sense.
11, are you trying to call?
Of
nobody move. Everything will be
maybe
okay.
it's harmful. Let's
If you
get
try
those
to make any move, you danger yourself and the airplane. Looks like you lost the primary target about 20 west of Kennedy, and we had a report of ELT in the area. We're going to
boat in the Hudson.
This is the ACI watch. Say again.
PCB's the fish are down 90%. You can drift out of the Hudson. Now, common sense would say, don't take 8 billion pounds of mud out of the bottom of Hudson, tracing tiny pieces of PCBs. It's just ludicrous.
You think one day the government will regret the decision?
One day the government, in my opinion.
On an airplane that's been hijacked, if things will go well, I'm looking good. I just want you to know I absolutely love you. I want you to do good. Go have a good time. Same to my parents and everybody. I just totally love you, and I'll see you later. My name.
This is part of a memo. It says, before opening the door to the room, the man is to stand with a folded newspaper in his right hand, rapidly wave it for at least a minute to eliminate the possibility that flies will enter the room. Using 8 Kleenexes placed in the left hand, the man who's rapidly waving the newspaper will knock on the door. When HRH responds, the man will open the door using the hand with the Kleenex. I mean,
right, as opposed to the dirty hand. I mean, hello, Howard. The man wasn't that compulsive, let's face it, but on the other hand, he was absolutely the most amazing man that America has ever created, ever.
Okay, I have got to interrupt you right now.
Sorry.
Richard Hack, thank you very much. We appreciate the book is called Hughes. We want to go live right now and show you a picture of the World Trade Center where I understand, do we have it? No, we do not. We have a breaking story, though. We're going to come back with that in just a moment. First, this is Today on NBC.
We have smoke and it's pretty bad. We can't get down the stairs. All right. We have about 100 people up here. Do not leave, okay? There's a fire or an explosion or something in the building. All right. I want you to stay where you are. Yes. All right. We're there. We're coming up to get you. From outside the windows down. We're on the floor. All right. We're on the way. Sit tight. All right. Sit tight. We're on the way.
Okay, are the lights still on? The lights are on, but it's very hot. Ma'am. Very hot. We're all the way on the other side of Liberty. And it's very, very hot.
As Matt just mentioned, we have a breaking news story to tell you about. Apparently, a plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center here in New York City. It happened just a few moments ago, apparently. We have very little information available at this point in time. But on the phone, we do have Jennifer Oberstein, who apparently witnessed this event. Jennifer, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, can you please tell me what you saw and give me any information about what's going on there?
Yes, I have to tell you, it's quite terrifying. I'm in shock right now. I came out of the subway at Bowling Green. I was heading to work in Battery Park at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and I come out, and I heard a boom, looked up, and there was a big ball of fire. I'm now looking north at the World Trade Center, and it is the left twin tower if I'm looking north. I'm in Battery Park right now, and you can hear the fire engines and the emergency crews behind me, and it is unbelievable. When the fire first burst, it was a... Hello?
Go ahead. We can hear you.
In air like I've never seen before. And as you know, I used to work in news. I've never seen any fire like this in the air. And the pieces of the building were flying down. It looks like it's like the top, I can't even tell you, maybe 20 floors. Intense smoke. It's horrible. I can't even describe it.
Do you have any idea what kind of plane it was?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any idea what hit the World Trade Center?
What it was?
Yeah, what kind of plane? We're getting reports that an airplane hit the building.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Honestly, I was walking up and it looked up and saw a big boom and fire. You know, I got to tell you, we were all saying around here that it was very interesting that it would be a bomb and it would be so high up. So perhaps it was a plane. We have no talk of a plane. However, I have to tell you, there are still things flying in the air. I mean, it's mind-boggling, and it's horrifying.
Jennifer, it's Matt Lauer. I'd like to ask you, while you were close to the building, or have you, since the explosion, seen anyone who's been injured being taken out of the building? Are there ambulances dealing with people on the sidewalk around the building?
Nobody. We have a hijack. We have some problems over here right now. Oh, you do? Yes, and that may be real traffic. Nobody knows. I can't get a hold of the United 175 at all right now. And I don't know where he went to.
All right. Okay, I'll see if I have one.
All right. Okay.
United 175
lots of debris coming down. And right now I'm in Battery Park. I don't know, it's probably
U.S. Air 583, go ahead.
Hey, Mom, it's Brad. Just wanted to call and let you know, I'm sure that you heard that a plane crashed into World Trade Center 1. We're fine. We're in World Trade Center 2. Obviously alive and well over here. But obviously a pretty scary experience. I saw a guy fall out of probably the 91st story all the way down. So, if you want, we'll give a call here. I think we'll be here all day. But, give me a call back later. Love you.
The plane has been hijacked. Honestly, I'm calling from the plane. I want to tell you I love you. Please tell my children that I love them very much. And I'm so sorry, babe. I don't know what to say. There's 3 guys. They've hijacked the plane. I'm trying to be calm. We're turned around, and I heard that there's planes that's been flown into the World Trade Center. I hope to be able to see your face again, baby. I love you. Bye.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I got some handouts for you. We got some incidents going over here. Is Delta 2433 going to be okay? 33. I decline for traffic at United 170.
We could feel shockwaves, but we sort of felt like we did. And we were in a position where we could see the Trade Center almost immediately between the other buildings. And an enormous fireball that must have been 300 feet across was visible immediately.
Somebody keeps cussing, but it looks like it's going into one of the small amp points down there.
And plumes of smoke. There must have been a 3-block cloud of white smoke. Now, from where I was on the street a moment ago, you can in fact see smoke.
I've just got a 9500
building on 3 sides.
Do you know who he is?
We don't know who he is. We're just picking him up now.
All right, heads up, man.
The air is filled with hundreds of thousands of pieces of paper that are just sort of floating like confetti. The area is swarmed with emergency vehicles and sirens. Obviously, we're very sensitive to this kind of thing in this neighborhood.
Elliot, have you, of course, because of the incident that occurred in the early 1990s, have you seen any evidence, Elliot, of people being taken out of the building? You say that emergency vehicles are there, understandably so, but of course the major concern is human loss. I mean, do you know if there were many people in the building?
Another one just hit. Something else just hit. A very large plane just flew directly over my building, and there's been another collision. Can you see it? I can see it on the shot.
Oh, my.
Something else has just...
You know what? We just saw a plane circling the building.
It is in the other building.
We just saw a plane circling the building a second ago on the shot right before that.
I think there may have been another impact. Can you tell? I just heard another very loud bang, and a very large plane that might have been a DC-9 or a 747 just flew past my window, and I think it may have hit the Trade Center again.
To be honest, Elliot, I didn't get the impression that it was that big a plane.
It looks big from here.
I did see a plane go by a second ago, though, and it has now impacted the building. I'm trying to see if it's the different tower.
I think it may have been. I believe the first one was World Trade Center 1, and it looks, from what I'm seeing on the television, like it may have been the second building.
This is a piece of tape, and we may actually see another plane enter the picture here in a second.
I wonder if there are air traffic control problems.
Let's go back to Jennifer Oberstein, who was talking to a second ago. Jennifer, did you see this happen?
Hello?
Did you just see this happen, Jennifer?
Matt, I've never seen any. It looks like a movie. I saw a large plane, like a jet, goes immediately headed directly into the World Trade Center. It just flew into it, into the other tower coming from south to north. I watched the plane fly into the World Trade Center. It was a jet. It was a very large plane. It was going fast. It went past the Ritz-Carlton Hotel that's being built in Battery Park. It flew right past it, almost hit it, and then went in.
This is so shocking, of course, to everybody watching.
I've never seen anything like it. It literally flew itself into World Trade Center.
Obviously now we move from what appears to have, there it is right there.
Again, I'm looking from south to north, and it went into the one on the right.
That appeared to be at least a 727. We saw it a second ago. Here comes the videotape that we just showed you. You will see what appears to be a large plane. It could be a 727 right there, maybe even bigger, flying right into the side of the World Trade Center.
It was at least a 727. It was a jet. I couldn't believe my eyes watching it right above me.
And now you have to move from talk about a possible accident to talk about something deliberate that has happened here. We're going to immediately check with air traffic control in the area to find out if they had contact with either of these planes before the accident. But what we've just seen is about the most shocking videotape I've ever seen.
What are the odds of two separate planes hitting both towers?
Jim McCall. Indianapolis Center, did you get a hold of American 77 by chance? No, sir, but we have an unconfirmed report that the second airplane hit the World Trade Center. Say again? You know, we lost American 11 through hijacking. You know, American was a Boston, Los Angeles flight. So we don't really know where the target is, and we can't get a hold of him. I can't hear what you're saying there. You said American 11? Yes, we were hijacked. You tried him and no response? Which is a Boston, LA flight. And 77 is a Dulles, LA flight. And no communications with them. We have an unconfirmed report of second airplane just flew into the World Trade Center. Thank you very much.
Anything within your airline to us?
No, unfortunately.
How about, can you tell me if you know for sure with American 11 that
preliminary information. Believe to be American Airlines flight 77.
Which flight are you missing?
77.
Officials are saying, let's go to President Bush right now.
World Trade Center.
Unfortunately, we'll be going back to Washington after my remarks. Secretary Rod Pace and Lieutenant Governor will take the podium and discuss education. I do want to thank the folks here at Booker Elementary School for their hospitality. Today, we've had a national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
No. That, of course, was President Bush, who is in Florida, in Longboat Key. He was speaking at an elementary school. He had planned to be talking about literacy. Obviously, he had to change. He mentioned that this is an apparent terrorist attack. He is traveling back to Washington. He said that he had spoken to the governor of New York as well as the vice president, that all the resources will be brought to bear by the federal government to determine who did this and who is responsible for this
we're getting conflicting reports on that
event. And then, of course, it was followed up by a moment of silence for the victims.
Where did it go off, radar? 175 Command Center. Could you tell me anything and everything you can about American 77, where he is, and if you have radar or not?
Well, air traffic that have
dropped off radar over Indiana.
Okay, I'm listening to you. I also wanted to talk to Washington.
I'm sorry?
We were talking to him in the vicinity of Henderson.
Henderson? What's Henderson? 1256 Zulu, we lost comm and radar. Any ELT?
No ELTs.
It's still airborne. 11,
okay.
The first guy, he's heading towards Washington. Okay, I think we need to scramble Langley right now, and I'm gonna take the fighters from Otis and try to chase this guy down if I can find him.
To hunt down, in his words, the people responsible for this. He will now travel back to Washington and aid.
We're getting in position.
Now that he will
Got a position?
be in a national
He's heading towards Langley, or I should say Washington.
Next.
David, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're looking at live pictures of the Pentagon where there is billowing smoke. Jim Miklashevsky just reported that he heard an explosion, and right now we're looking at an aerial view of the Pentagon. Mick, can you talk to us?
Officially, nobody knows exactly what happened. I think the picture is pretty clear. According to one U.S. Army officer who went running past me at a full trot, he said that it appears that a bomb was detonated at the heliport. The heliport is a helicopter landing area right next to the Pentagon, just adjacent to the E-ring. The officers nearest the heliport area are U.S. Army.
Heard or seen anything like it. He talked about back in 1993 a German plane being hijacked, and there were fears when it was flown to New York that it might be crashed into something.
Now, this is a major development. The Federal Aviation Administration has shut down all air traffic nationwide. This country has been immobilized by these terrorist attacks in terms of air travel today. And we don't know where it goes from here. We'll just ask that you stay with us so that as we get hard information, we can share that with you. It's going to be a lot
aircraft near the White House, and one can only wonder if that was something that ultimately ended up in the Pentagon.
We just saw a live picture of what seemed to be a portion of the building falling away from the World Trade Center. If we can re-rack that to about 20 seconds ago, you'll see something dramatic happening. And I don't know whether it's another explosion or a portion of the building falling away, but something major just happened at that building. Here we go to the tape. And watch what happens in the left-hand tower. This footage we're seeing right now shows that the damage is so severe. I mean, we had seen what seemed to be two fairly self-contained impact craters before. And now we're going to see something much more dramatic is happening to one.
Spoken again to U.S. officials with access to the highest intelligence, and they are now confirming that it does appear that at the Pentagon it was a plane. And they are saying they believe now a third plane was involved at the Pentagon.
And of course, this has been a nightmare, Katie, for national security officials for a long time. We talk about nuclear bombs and those kinds of exchanges or invasions, but everyone has been terribly worried about the suitcase-sized bomb of some kind, or an airplane, or an attack on our subways in the large cities. And this, obviously, no one had anticipated. 3 airplanes that were deliberately aimed at critical targets in America. We can only hope that it's over for today, but officials are taking no chances on all of that. They're evacuating all critical buildings because...
It looks sort of like the building just demolished. Smoke, clouds, clouds of smoke everywhere. People running towards me. I was going towards the Twin Towers. People were going away from the towers, and it was just people running like I've never seen anything like it.
And I can't see the speck of an airplane, but security forces here are obviously alarmed enough not only to tell people to keep some distance from the building, but to take immediate cover.
Can you tell me a little bit more? Well, actually, let's look at these live pictures at the World Trade Center. The other tower of the World Trade Center has just collapsed. You are looking at live pictures of the second twin tower at the World Trade Center collapsing as a result of the crash of an airplane into its side. That, I believe, was the first tower that was struck this morning at 8:42 Eastern Time.
You're not there.
It has now fallen to the ground and
The profile of
collapsed.
Manhattan has been changed. There's been a declaration of war by terrorists on the United States. There's nothing short of that.
Pat Dawson, excuse me, Tom, is down at the scene. Pat?
Where's Wade? Where's Wade? Pat, can you hear us? Obviously, there is pandemonium downtown. Pat is not far from the World Trade Center. You can hear from the sirens, and you can only imagine the confusion and the terror that is in that area after not one but both Trade Center towers have now collapsed.
More than 100 stories of steel, concrete, electrical. There it is.
Pick up, sweetie. Okay, well, I just wanted to tell you I love you. We're having a little problem on the plane. I'm totally fine. I just love you more than anything. Just know that. And, I'm comfortable and I'm okay for now. Just a little problem, so I'll,
Also, it's Lynn.
I just love you.
I only have a minute.
I
I'm on United 93, and it's been hijacked by terrorists who say they have a bomb. Apparently, they have flown a couple of planes into the World Trade Center already, and it looks like they're going to take this one down as well. Mostly, I just wanted to say I love you, and I'm going to miss you. and please keep my love to my dad. And mostly, I just love you, and I just wanted to tell you that. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to tell you that again or not. All my stuff is in the safe. The safe is in my closet in my bedroom. The combination is you push C for clear and then 0913, and then it should, and maybe pound, and then it should unlock. I love you. I hope I can talk to you soon.
Go ahead.
Bye.
United 93. Have you got information on that yet? Yeah, he's down. He's down? Yes. When did he land? Because we have confirmation. He did not land. Oh, he's down? Yeah, Down? somewhere up northeast of Camp David. Northeast of Camp David. That's the last report. They don't know exactly where.
Attention all units, we're receiving reports of number 1 and number 2 World Trade Center collapse. All units at the scene receiving reports. Number 1 and number 2 World Trade Centers, both towers collapse. Any other unicorns? 1030416. All right, Manhattan announcing any division or any staff chief at the scene of the World Trade Center, okay? Any division chief or any staff chief at the scene of any of the World Trade Centers, okay? The mobile command center, okay? Right.
Mobile command center to Manhattan, okay?
All right, mobile command center. What chief do you have at your mobile command center, okay?
Negative on everything, okay? Right now we're all alone. The second building came down. I can't see, so we have no contact with anybody at this time, okay?
We're ready for your joke, Jeff.
Why did the chicken cross? I can't give you the joke. It's not funny.
Too soon?
The chicken crossing the road? Yeah. Way too soon.
That was hard to listen to, especially that very first part where it was about Michael Jordan hitting the final shot against the Utah Jazz. That was pretty rough.
Yeah, where they just
that was a good joke, Bolt.
That was a good one. That lightened it up a little bit, right?
It was interesting to see what they were talking about, though.
What do you mean?
Before
the things that were
9/11.
going on, like seconds before it occurred. Like, what were we talking about in the news?
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to do this is because some of us, I think, were camping while this happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we weren't like experiencing this as it happened, and I really wanted to kind of get as close to that as I could and go back and like, what was it like sitting and watching the news and what was their reaction to it, because when we came back, there was tons of footage of burning and planes flying into buildings and stuff, but you didn't really see like what people felt and experienced.
We didn't see it live.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean by then they had already like put all the CGI planes over all the news?
Exactly.
And
right.
Yep, and all the people, and they'd already set up all the det cord to demo the buildings. And
joining us on the iPad is Jesse Ventura, the body, Jesse Ventura.
Who's that?
Never mind.
Oh.
Here's a question I have about that. You put all that together.
Yeah, I did.
And it when you hear the audio, that's roughly the same time. Like when you hear air traffic control, that's roughly the same time that the news guys are speaking and all that stuff. So it's like when the towers crash and they're still talking about some guy in his book that he released, and then moments later it's like, oh, we're just getting this in. That's pretty close time-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I took a little liberty because I obviously crunched it down.
Yeah.
But the idea was like, while this was happening, what else was happening? And I tried to get the perspective of like, the fire department, the FBI, the military, the air traffic control, all of that is in there, while you're kind of watching the news to see. And one of the things that really like stuck out to me when I watched this is like when you hear the beginning of it, I mean, this is so obvious, but it's like people have no idea. Like people sound so happy on the news. Like it's just another great day to be alive in America,
Right.
Just having no clue what's about to happen.
Sunny September 11th.
Yeah. And the Bush administration getting shit for not believing in global warming.
Yeah.
Coming up next,
But people were like happy about it,
Right. And it was fine. That was just the thing they were going to talk about.
Yeah. And it's just amazing. Even like Bush's speech, I've heard it. I'm sure we've all heard it a dozen times, but when you're just listening to it instead of watching it, you can hear that like trembling emotion in his voice. He's just like blown away. Like,
or is he afraid he's going to get caught?
Right. Or he's like,
that's it.
I hope we pull this off. Right.
That's right.
Oh, I'm just setting the tone for where this is going to eventually go.
He's trying to beat me to the punch.
So anyway, yeah.
I haven't heard the vast majority of that audio, and so it was interesting to hear what was the world talking about at the time.
Yeah.
Seconds before the first plane hit the first tower. And how focus completely shifted. It's the day that the world stood still. Like for me, when I, in conversation with people in my day-to-day life, if somebody refers back to something that happened before 9/11, subconsciously I think, oh, that was pre 9/11.
Yeah.
It's like it's the not just the beginning of a chapter, but it's like a whole new book, right? Everything happened pre or post 9/11. It's heart-wrenching to hear everything that, hear it happen in real time.
I would say the thing that was really hard for me and kind of emotional was the phone calls, because I hadn't heard maybe one of them, ever. And so to listen to those phone calls and those people, it was kind of surprising how calm they were at the beginning of the phone call. And then, and they were such short phone calls. I don't know. Like I don't know how I would react in that situation. I would want to call, but at the same time, did they just feel like they couldn't go try to take this person out? I mean, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and you could really tell the difference between the people who called before any attacks had happened or like didn't know, because they were just like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm going to call and say I love you just in case, but they weren't like freaking their family out because they're like, well, I'll probably be okay,
Yeah.
But just in case, I'm going to tell you I love you. And contrast that with the people that are like, oh, they just flew planes into the towers. That's probably what's happening here. And you could tell they were like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to see you again. So.
And I'm thinking like back to when those days of flying, how did they even find out? Oh, how did they find out that those towers had been attacked when they were in mid-flight? Because you weren't supposed to have your phone and told anything, right? Unless maybe, that's what I don't understand. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, I do. So some of the audio in there is actually what are they called? Flight attendants that are communicating back with their airline or whatever, and so they're probably telling them, and then they're telling passengers, and passengers are, taking turns making calls or whatever.
Sense.
And you could tell some of them they're like short and sweet, because they're probably got a line of people that are trying to call, but.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, so long intro. This is the American Forked podcast. We're a group of lifetime friends who grew up together and grew up to have different opinions and different likes and things like that. But we're still friends. We still get together. And today we are, I guess I shouldn't say celebrating, but honoring or remembering September 11th, 2001. This week will be the 20th anniversary of the attacks that you just listened to, that you've probably heard a lot of times, but hopefully got a little bit different perspective. And that's what we're talking about today. So welcome. Hope you're having fun. I'm Phil. Next to me is my bro, Jeff.
We're not really brothers.
Next to him is his bro, Bolty.
We are brothers.
Hello.
Next to him is his brother, Beagle.
What up?
He just poofed a cigarette out like he was so cool.
Hey, guys.
Next to him is the spiritual essence.
What up?
And his brother, next to him is Jacob.
Hey, guys.
How is everyone?
Great. Good.
Yeah.
I like that we're all brothers.
Good.
Yeah. Welcome, brethren. Our first speaker tonight will be Brother Bolter.
Welcome to the quorum.
Followed by... So it's pretty crazy. Like, one of the craziest things to me is that it's been 20 years. Are we freaking old or what?
Yeah.
What?
Like, that means there's 19 years worth of people being born that weren't even alive when this happened, or 20 years.
That's right.
In theory.
Mm-hmm.
Is that good math?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I asked my kids this because we're going to be going to do some things on September 11th for the 20-year anniversary. And I asked them, have you seen any of these videos or anything like that? And they're kind of like, I think I did. Like, it's not really a part of their life. I mean, they're, teens, they're 13 and 10, and they're pretty much oblivious about it.
Yeah.
It's like they knew it was a thing that happened, but probably like us growing up, we knew that, rotary phones were a thing, but we didn't really use them.
Yeah,
Or probably more like Watergate.
Oh, that's the one.
Watergate or Pearl Harbor is a good example.
Right.
Like, we know about it historically, but so my great grandfather, my grandma's father, served in World War II. He was the guy that drove the Jeeps back from the front line with the bodies in them. Mm. And when September 11th happened, he called his daughter, my grandmother, and said, "Your world just changed forever." And he knew that because he lived through Pearl Harbor and all that and the war and knew what this kind of event meant. And it's been a wild time.
My kids refer to everything that happened before they were born as the olden days.
Yeah.
So 9/11 was in the olden days for them.
Yeah, it really was.
N64, Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
All in the olden days.
Michael Jordan.
Yep. Well, it is interesting. And I want to say, if no one else will, very well done, Phil. That was
thanks.
awesome.
Very well put together.
That was an awesome thing, and obviously took a lot of time, and very good job. And very well done in starting this podcast off with a real somber, chills.
Yeah, way to set the mood, thanks.
On the verge of crying.
You're welcome.
That's what we're known for here.
Yeah, crying, laughter, humiliation.
But if there's any appropriate time to do it, it's probably paying tribute to those events of 9/11.
Yeah, so obviously this happened 20 years ago. So what's the world been like since? What have we gone through since then? I mean, the most obvious thing is we went to war over this. in two countries, Iraq and Afghanistan.
And it just ended.
And just ended this week, just this couple days ago, as of this recording. So, so what's that like? Is that?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of things have happened. But going back to what I was saying before, when I experience things like when I witness things that we're experiencing in our day-to-day lives, I'm always thinking, like, comparatively speaking, is this as bad as it was on 9/11? And there have been a lot of instances where some pretty bad things have happened that for some reason are easily forgotten. Mm-hmm. But 9/11 is just one of those things that you don't forget.
Yeah.
Well, especially because like a week later, there was stickers everywhere that said "Never forget."
Yeah,
that might have helped.
Those
you
stickers
not forget.
worked. Those stickers worked. It's good marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, never forget it.
I felt like that was the last time this country was really united together again. Too. That's an important thing to point out, I would say.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that today. I was listening to that clip while I was driving to pick up my kids from school. And I was thinking to myself, like, what were the goals of the people who did this, the terrorists that caused this calamity?
I know Jeff could tell you.
Jeff could tell us, but
76 virgins.
But before we even get to that, at least what they've claimed. So initially, I found out while reading about this, Osama bin Laden didn't even take credit for this. It wasn't actually until 2004 that he said, "Oh yeah, I did it, and here are the reasons why." And the reasons were actually kind of strange. They were like, it's because the U.S. is occupying Saudi Arabia and sanctions against Iraq and something to do with the Taliban. I can't remember. But I thought that was a little bit strange. And then we obviously killed that dude in 2011. Is that right?
Obama was the president, right?
Yeah.
That's all I remember. I don't remember what year it was.
That's what they say. They killed him.
Yeah. Oh, you don't think they killed
Buried
him?
him in the sea.
Yeah, it was a little strange. Yeah, we got him. The most wanted man in the universe, and he's gone.
Second most wanted man.
Yeah.
So 3 years later, he says, "Yeah, I was responsible for it." Usually, a terrorist group will claim responsibility within a day.
Yeah.
Of something like that happening. So that's odd that it was.
Yeah,
much later.
and I don't know what I'm not trying to get at anything with that. I did think that was odd. I kind of, my memory for some reason told me that Osama was like on the news the next day. Yeah, I did it, and people jumping up and down with guns, but
took some time.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he knew that anyone that takes credit for it is gonna die.
Is dead. Yeah.
So I imagine that's why he did not want to take credit for it, because he knew there was no escape from what was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, another impression I had while listening to all this is like, back at the time we were kind of like, oh, these idiot desert people and their stupid religion, they came over here and they just pulled off by accident this thing that, blah, blah, blah. But when I really listened back to it, it's extremely sophisticated. Like, these dudes were really smart, like had to be highly educated. I mean, you could hear the one guy speaking, just fine English to everybody, sit down, do this and this. And they obviously went to flight school, most of them, to learn how to fly an airplane in the first place. One of the audio clips you'll hear on them, it's not quite as loud, but you can hear him say, yeah, he's rocking his wings back and forth. We don't know what he's doing. And I read up on that a little. They think as they were trying to break in on Flight 93, he started rocking the plane to throw everybody around in the thing. So
the pilot was?
Yeah, the terrorist. Yeah. So these guys, like, they knew what they were doing. They were well equipped. They were well funded. So it wasn't because we were just really dumb and had this big vulnerability, which we did. But it took very smart people, I think, to exploit that. And that's why it went down the way it is.
One thing that comes up on like American propaganda, you could say, is you can look at it through the world wars and this as well, is like it does get conveyed of like, we are the most powerful nation in the world. We are an eagle and they are stupid kind of thing. They are dumb. But you could look at all the enemies and look at them and go, you know what? They're actually pretty smart.
Yeah.
Like that's why they're good enemies, or what's the word I'm thinking? A tough fight. That's why they can pull off the things they're going to pull off. Like, sorry, but the Nazis weren't stupid. They were bad people, but they weren't idiots. And the same thing with these terrorists. They were not idiots.
Yeah.
They were smart people. They just didn't do things that we agree with.
Let's not give them any more credit.
Yeah.
I hard disagree with everything that's being said.
You think they were idiots?
You think they were the equivalent of the Star Wars sand people?
So, I mean, no, they're not like. I never thought of them as stupid, but I would never claim that they're like super smart or anything.
Well, and that's probably the wrong.
They definitely were calculated and thoughtful, I guess, in a way you could say that. But, I mean, whenever 9/11 is brought up, whenever there's a terrorist act, like the terrorist act that happened, what was it, like almost a week ago now?
You're talking about the bombing at the base in Afghanistan.
Yeah, at the airport.
Yeah.
I always think about there was a interview that Jon Stewart did with the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, Prime Minister of United Kingdom at the time. Well, it was, I don't remember when the interview was. I think it was before they had killed Osama bin Laden. So it was somewhere like 2010, 2011, something like that. But we've invaded Iraq. And anyways, Jon Stewart was talking to Tony Blair about Iraq and about, how George Bush and America convinced him to get the United Kingdom on board, the UK on board with the whole war and everything. And anyways, Jon Stewart said this really insightful thing where he said basically that you just can't imagine spending enough money to go to war, building up a big enough army, spending enough money to the point where 12 people don't want to get into a plane and kill some people, right? Like, no matter what you do, no matter what security measures you have in place, there's always a way, if you want, to kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
You're just not going to stop it.
There's always a way to exploit it.
That's right.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
So I don't think that there were flaws in our system. I think that it is what it is. When a few people are desperate enough, for whatever reason, have been radicalized enough to want to do harm, they're going to do it, no matter what security measures you have in place.
Yeah, you're right. But I agree that you say that weren't flaws in our system. There's a lot of things that have changed because of 9/11. Like, take, for instance, I was just briefly looking up and how NORAD basically didn't have a game plan on how to intercept, like have fighter jets ready to go to intercept any planes back in 2001.
Well, passenger planes. They could deal with military planes easily, but the passenger planes, they had no idea what to do with that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and one of the first things that the terrorists did was they disrupted they disabled the transponders. So even air traffic control didn't know where the heck they were.
Yeah,
so.
and we heard that on that recording just barely, where they're talking back and forth and saying, where are they? Where's their vector or whatever lingo they use? And they say, well, we think they're about here. And you could hear the two talking. I believe it was between some air traffic control and military, because the air traffic control was saying that we're actually going to have to guide you up there until you see them. Like, you're going to have to fly around where we think they might be until you see them, because we can't track them right now. And that's what they were getting ready to do. They were sending planes out to blow up Flight 93, and there was a little bit of disconnect. The one guy said, we've had orders to shoot down anyone who won't respond. And then the other guy said, I think I have a conflict there. We're supposed to wait. And so it was literally like on the cusp. They were like trying to figure out who got whose information from who and who had the authority or whatever. But obviously by the time anybody made any decision, it was too late. Sorry, I wasn't crying. I just burped. But
burp crying.
But yeah, and I agree with you, Beagle. Like, I wasn't trying to say that they're smart, because they're obviously dumb, really, really dumb in a great way, which is they thought that by killing themselves, it would do some great good for God or their religion, or
it was about the virgins. That's all it was.
Or getting some virgins,
Yeah.
or
That's
or
all it
anything
was.
like that, right? So, in a way,
But Jake, to belittle that mentality is similar to you saying you're going to go to the celestial kingdom if you do certain things. So, while if you say it's only about getting the 72 virgins, sure, that if that is their only motivation, that's dumb. But no, they believe that they will be with Allah in the kingdom of heaven. Yes, they will find other rewards, and there are some of them that are just lonely bastards that were horny. But I'd say the majority of them had conviction that they were really going to heaven because of this.
I'm going to go on the record and say that I can barely handle one woman. Like 72 would just be too much. I think 3 or 4 probably way too much.
I think I'd top out at
Jeff, you're
71.
leaving out the most important part. They're virgins.
Well,
you can handle virgins. It's just once
I can't.
Once the virgin is out of them.
I know it's hard for you to see other people's point of view, but what I'm saying is I can't handle that. I understand you can. I can't.
Huh.
Okay.
So that's a good segue for Jeff to lead us on a merry chase. Did this actually happen the way that we think it did?
Okay.
Was there something else going on in the background?
I love how you put me on the spot. And it's really unfortunate that Bolt's still here to fact check
I
me.
knew that while we heard some of those parts, you were like, oh, the bomb.
Okay,
You said
so
it was
like
a
to welcome
bomb.
Alex Jones with us?
Yeah.
I'm going to go on the record.
Real man sounds like.
I'm going to go on the record right now and say that I love conspiracy theories because the story is wonderful. Whether I believe them as much as I believe other things is questionable. But I will say that my father gave me a CD shortly after 9/11 that basically, it's all the stuff you guys have heard before. She proved that it was a government inside job and why they did it and what the proof is and this and that. And there are some things in those documentaries and in those theories that are quite intriguing. I will say that much.
Entertaining, as you put it.
Well, what was?
Very entertaining. Well, there's a whole bunch of them we can talk about, but let me talk to you about the ones that convince me that something doesn't seem right, okay? One of them is, I think it was Building 7. You guys familiar with?
That's the smaller building.
That's the smaller building.
Later that afternoon.
Yeah, it collapsed later that afternoon in from what I recall, and I'm doing most of this off memory, but the 2 towers fell, and there's a lot of damage to buildings around them as well. And they basically said, well, this building is so damaged, we need to pull it. And they were able to drop that building that night.
Yeah.
It didn't structurally fall. It wasn't constructed the same way that the Twin Towers were with the concrete and iron pans. And right, it was never hit. It never had extreme 1800-degree fires in it. But for some reason, they were able to demolish that building that night. And the only way I can describe it as is demolish that building. When you see pictures of it, And I've seen people that time it out, and I don't know all the details on this stuff, but it free falls.
Yeah.
It has no resistance like a building collapsing and some of the buildings still holding it up and it's falling down.
Fell into its
It
own
fell into
footprint.
itself straight down. I think it fell in 9 seconds, which is exactly like terminal velocity if something were to be dropped from the top floor and fall down. When they showed that, I was like, that's interesting, because I've been a big fan of controlled demolitions. Like, I love watching them. They've always been cool to me, but it takes weeks and weeks to set that up, and it takes a long time to get that. So to me, that's like one of the biggest signs that, like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
There ain't no way in hell they got a demolition crew in there set up from the time it happened in the morning to that evening to demolish that building. And to me, that's a pretty big piece of information. I don't know. Are you fact checking me, Bolt? Is that why you're so quiet? It's probably building 5, not building 7.
Yeah,
it was 7. You're right. It was 7. It was 7. Okay.
And what we're dabbling here a little bit is like, did all this go down the way that we were told? Was there anything else involved? Some kind of government conspiracy or cover up? One of the most interesting things I thought that came out of all of that over all the years, I think, was a professor at BYU, actually, that sampled some of the dust, I guess, from some woman, collected dust off her windowsill there in New York and sent it to him, and he claimed that it had a lot of thermite in it, which is like a combustive whatever. One thing I never thought about before today, I was talking to my grandmother about this, and I was like, yeah, I was just watching these videos, all the smoke billowing up and everything, and she's like, oh yeah, all that asbestos. And I never even thought about that this building was probably covered in asbestos insulation all over the concrete. Like, all of that had to just be...
Yeah, there are people who suffered physical interior health problems for years after.
Yeah. A lot of
weird cancers,
all that kind of stuff, which again, like, could have probably happened without asbestos, without thermite, without any of that. Just the amount of like sheer material blowing up and dust getting everywhere, and all the people, you see the videos of them running and coughing in the dust, just breathing like pure dust.
It seems like they never dusted those buildings. Like, there was just always dust on them, and then when they all came down, it was really dusty.
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, well, what's the next best conspiracy
Well, is no one going to argue with me about that? It's just fact. Okay, Building 7 was demolished. Controlled demo. All right, so that's a fact.
I actually,
asbestos theory.
I actually don't know a lot about it, other than...
You should look at it.
It was a little weird.
Can I interject a little bit?
Go ahead.
Of course.
Yeah.
So with the thermite thing, did you say it was a BYU professor that was the one that actually studied it?
Yeah, I believe that
I think it was
true.
named David Jones, I think, comes to mind.
Yeah, there was 5 different people I saw, and 2 of them were from BYU and physics and engineering. So they looked into it, and they confirmed that what they found was similar to thermite, which contains aluminum oxide, which is also found in paint. So it just as easily could have been that paint vaporized and ended up on the windowsill. So yes, it's possible that there was thermite and demolition in there, but there aren't other... Besides that, there's not been other corroborating evidence per se for the thermite. Building 7, I'll totally agree, is a weird one because it fell, I think, like 7 hours later after it. Granted, it was pretty close. Like, it was surrounded by smoke and hit by debris from the other 2 towers falling. So I don't know. But yeah, that is, I'll agree that Building 7 was way more suspicious to me than the other towers.
Well, and also the way it fell down, it's not the same construction as the others.
Sure.
Anyways, to me, it's weird. That's some of the harder evidence. I've heard some way crazy conspiracy theories. I watched one not that long ago that was just called No Planes, and their claim was that there was actually no airplanes.
Yeah.
It was
There were
all
projections.
CGI.
Yeah.
It was all, but doesn't really help with the live people that actually saw it. But their claim was that the live broadcast was all CGI. And I was like, that's interesting.
Well, some people have said that there are projections, like it was a projection of what appears to be a plane flying into it, but it wasn't.
Like Michael Jackson in Vegas
Yeah.
at the concert thing you go see.
And that's one of those things you get into, like, kind of like the moon landing thing. Like, what's easier, to land on the moon or to fake it?
To stage it, yeah.
Yeah, and in this case, it probably was a lot easier to hijack a plane and fly it in than to do that. That's actually an interesting thing. Listening back to these tapes as we just did, you could argue that it was faked. There were no planes. It was faked on TV. What I think you can't fake is not just the reactions of, the hosts and everything, but like the one that really stuck out to me is the girl that was on the ground that they're talking to. And she's just like, you can tell this girl is in shock. And she just saw an airplane fly into the building. Like,
right.
It was just, and I mean, that's not hard evidence, but it's just something really, it wasn't like she's like, it was weird. There was this flickering light. It looked like a plane. It was like, I just saw a plane fly into the World Trade Center.
You could tell
like,
she was witnessing a terrible thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Her voice inflection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that same light, though, in the same documentary that my dad gave me, I think he burned like as many CDs as he could and handed them out like wherever he could. He pretended like it was his movie or something.
It's like Book of Mormon.
He's passing them out.
out.
But anyways, he in that same documentary, it showed multiple people from different angles, like not standing right by each other, being interviewed by different people. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you know what I mean? They're asking these open-ended questions to people out on the streets. And they showed like 6 or 7 interviews from firefighters to people walking around. What did they see? And one of the things that kept coming up is while the towers were coming down, how it was like boom, 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 every floor, boom, boom, boom. They were talking about an explosion happening at each floor. I believed that at the time. I was like, oh, okay, that was a controlled demolition on those 2 buildings, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe that anymore because I've seen a lot more reasons why it could have fallen like that made sense to me. But at the same time, those people describing those explosions every so many floors was really interesting. And they said they could see the explosions and all that stuff from multiple people. I just thought, just like the lady saying, oh, I saw the plane flying over, and you can't, it's hard to fake that kind of reaction,
Yeah.
And it's hard to fake those live interviews as well of people describing what would sound like a controlled demolition,
Yeah, it kind of goes back to like those, maybe if it was faked, those people weren't in on it,
Right.
They were witnesses just like we were. There's a lot of them. Like the one that kind of popped out to me was when they're like, oh yeah, the Pentagon just blew up. Well, what happened? Well, a soldier just ran by and he said a bomb went off at the helipad, and then we don't find any airplane parts, or I guess they're very little airplane parts.
Yeah, you can't say that.
Yeah, there's a little airplane.
Oh,
parts,
I can
right?
say that. Watch.
Yeah,
there was no airplane parts at the Pentagon.
Don't say it like it's a fact.
Well, I will tell you.
They found the black box. They found cockpit. They found remains. They found multiple pieces. Whether they were placed there or not is a separate issue.
Yeah,
right.
But they found airplane pieces.
So one of the things that was in the same documentary that was very interesting was that how the Pentagon crash, how there was no footage or any information of the plane flying into that building. In fact, the security camera footage from the gas station across the street would have caught exactly where it went, and for some reason that footage isn't nowhere to be found. And what that means, I don't know. But it is weird that there's so much footage of the other stuff, but then there's like nothing of a plane crashing in to the Pentagon. Plus, the other thing that's a little interesting is that the Pentagon is how many stories tall? I don't think it's that tall. 6?
Yeah, something
10
like that.
maybe?
10 at the most.
It's a way different target than 106 floors. You know what I mean? It's a very small target. For something to run into that so cleanly into the side and go into the building, like that's kind of weird to me.
Well, this was the guy that graduated flight school, right? He just knew what he was doing.
Yeah, that's the thing is like
he did a tailspin backwards and then went into it.
He did a backflip.
That's a bad joke.
And that goes back to what I was getting at is like these guys weren't like dummies. Like they planned everything exactly. They flew into the first tower and had a delay so that all the world would be watching when the second one hit. Like It was, and they actually hit. You know, it wasn't like they skipped off the side and just the wing hit or whatever. It was like dead
Smashed
on,
right
in the middle, like expert flying. You know, and maybe not. I don't know how expert you have to be to fly a jumbo jet into a massive building, but going 600 miles an hour, I imagine there's something to it. I mean,
right.
And that.
Nah, it's easy.
Yeah,
they were pansies.
Easy.
They were idiots.
They're basically sand people from Star
Who's
Wars.
pulling the strings then? Let's go into if this was all orchestrated and say if it was even 100% as we saw it, planes flying into everything, and they were funded. Who were they funded by?
That's basically like watching a movie and be like, let's just talk about how this ends.
Well, no, I see.
I'm just kidding.
I see what you're getting at. Like, because at the time when these conspiracy theories started coming out, my impression was that the motivation behind something like that was the oil. That Cheney or Rumsfeld or Bush or whoever wanted the country to get a lot of oil out of the Middle East. They were looking for a reason to go into the Middle East. And fast forward to today, that argument, I feel like, just doesn't make a lot of sense. Because did we even pull any oil out of either of those countries?
I'm sure we did, but I think, it's interesting. I had a same theory, though. It had to do with people make billions and billions and billions of dollars off of war.
Yeah.
But you need a reason to go to war.
Yeah.
So, but then the reason why that shattered recently is that the war has cost about $2 trillion in 20 years.
Yeah,
that's not that much money compared to the stimulus packages and all these things that are coming through the Senate and Congress now. Like, is it a big enough reason to pull something that big off?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the stimulus package is, supposed to be spread out amongst more people. But if you take $2 trillion and spread it out amongst, 50,000 of the most influential people, that's where you get your big motivation.
Right.
Well, and I thought we were saying it was actually 4 to 6 trillion. Like the whole war.
I heard 2, but
yeah,
I didn't see the receipt.
Whatever it is, none of us did.
No, Afghanistan was somewhere around 2 million. Iraq was somewhere around like 4 trillion or something like that.
Oh, maybe it was just.
I'm saying everything.
Our entire
yeah.
response, everything was like 6 trillion. Something like that.
I mean, it's in the trillions, which is insane. No matter how you look at it, like. And not
nobody's going to be. It's not like anybody's. It's not like Microsoft or Google is pounding down government's door to lobby for stimulus payments, where there are actual arms dealers who would be pounding down the door saying, "Hey, buy our stuff. You need it."
Right.
I don't know. I think Google and Microsoft and them need the economy going just as much as everyone else. You're saying like a direct payment, like stimulus loans or something?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Walmart. There's definitely companies who pay their employees crap, and then during training they'll be like, "Hey, by the way, we know we don't pay you enough. Here's how we can help you set up welfare payments." Because we're not going to pay you, but the government will.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure if you work for Google, you're probably not making less than minimum wage.
Yeah.
Isn't Google the one that's, don't they have the not antitrust? Aren't they trying to form a union right now because they're saying they get not paid enough? Is that Google or is it Facebook? Or Twitter, or Amazon.
One of those.
Nobody knows.
One of those people.
Here's
Amazon. Amazon is definitely trying to create a union, but that kind of makes sense because just the nature of their business, right? Like, there's definitely workers who are just kind of picking up boxes and putting them down and stuff like that. That's
Here's the way I really look at it, though. Like, there's the conspiracy theory that this military industrial complex was rooting this thing on. I think the most likely is that they're just taking advantage of the situation. Like when there's a hurricane, the companies that build houses and send in water and first aid and all that stuff, of course, are like, oh, we're about to make a lot more money now than we normally do. And, that's part of life. And I think in the military, that's largely how it happens. And since we've now cooled down and we're technically done with the war, I guess, those companies, a lot of them are probably going to go out of business. They'll remold, redo whatever they're going to do, lobby for some more money in different ways. Probably like most companies who survive off of government spending, is my guess, but I don't know.
Right. I wanted to dive.
Yeah, no,
Go ahead, Beagle.
I would definitely. I don't really get into conspiracy theories all that much unless there's like good evidence, especially good evidence for like motivation.
For vegetarianism. You believe that theory of meat?
There's definitely a conspiracy about. We can get into that in a minute, but
meat farmers.
Anyway,
those dicks.
To finish my thoughts here, I don't really get into conspiracy theories. I don't believe that a bunch of billionaires or whatever got together and they were like, "Hey, let's kill 4,000 people so that we can go to war." I'm sure that all the events that happened on 9/11 were real. I'm sure that they saw an opportunity to make some money. And maybe they, even had some patriotism in them where they wanted to get back at the people who did this as well. I don't think that they're entirely heartless. I think they're more just opportunists.
I do want to bring up one thing. I need to go here in a minute. But as I was doing research on this, I came across something called Operation Northwoods. Because apparently the Department of Defense in 1962 put together a plan of how to basically create a whole bunch of terrorist acts that happened within the United States and blame it on Cuba in order to justify the invasion of Cuba. So there is precedent that the government has plotted before to create terrorism in order, for false flag operations to rile up the country against something. It didn't go through, but all this stuff is on paper.
Yeah, and even if you look back to John F. Kennedy, who was really riled up about communism and saying that pretty much we were going to go to war in Vietnam, and then his successor, was it Johnson,
LBJ,
who took us into Vietnam, like that seemed to all be like kind of all set up, like, oh, they're bad and we need to go in there, blah, blah, blah. And this war seemed to be very reminiscent, except for the fact that in Vietnam, I don't think we were ever attacked by Vietnam. I think it was a more like preemptive, like, oh, we don't want communism to spread, so let's get in there and kill all the communists, and which just turned out to be a disaster.
We were terrified of communism back then.
Yeah, it was like
it was like the new Nazism.
Exactly. Like, which is so funny because at the time it was like we just won World War II with Russia. We're all friends. And then like immediately Russia's not our friend and everybody that's like them is not our friend. Like it was this big, now there's these like two battling mentalities, which, we really see, I feel like, in our country today. I feel like it's kind of this divide that like, oh, where is my side landing? There's a new issue. What's my side?
I've got to take a side.
Yeah, where it's like not even take a side. It's like I'm already on a side. So when a new issue comes up, it's like, where is my side on that issue?
The people that I normally agree with, what do they say?
Yeah.
I'm going to say the same thing.
Exactly. And it's this constant, like, one thing I saw today on the news was companies in Florida had signs up on their door that said, if you voted for Biden or support him, we will not serve you because that dude's a dirtbag and he killed all those soldiers and blah, blah, blah. And I thought that was ridiculous.
That was just one restaurant, wasn't it?
Like, has there been a time in history? Well, obviously, before the civil rights movement, there were whole races of people that were being shunned from certain restaurants and things. But since then, has that really been a thing where, like, if you're this, we won't serve you, or if you think this, we won't serve you? Like, I don't remember it in my lifetime.
If you're too drunk, they'll stop giving you alcohol if you're at the bar.
No shoes,
Does
no
that
shirt,
count?
no service. If you don't have a shirt on, you can't come in.
Yeah, okay.
I've never been kicked out of a swimming pool without having sunscreen, so that's still a free market thing, you know? I don't know. I can't think of anything that's been this divisive in a long time. And this is one thing that...
Are you talking this divisive, you mean...
The way that the country is right now.
Okay.
Like...
Not okay.
Yeah, not over sunscreen or...
about 9/11 or...
No. In fact, that's kind of the point I was going to bring up, is that it's very shocking to listen to this audio like we did at the beginning of the show and put yourself back in that time frame and what happened right after that, and the unity and the bumper stickers. And I know it sounds so silly, but there actually was pride in the United States at that point. It's really interesting to see how in those 20 years, how it has turned into this divisive, separate thing. And there's not unity. It's almost like the American flag is a symbol to some that is bad. Expressing your opinion about this other thing is bad. You can't say these sorts of things, otherwise it's bad, right? Where back then it didn't matter. It didn't matter if you were a New Yorker. It didn't matter if you were from California, from Kentucky. We were all Americans. We were all going to go through this together. We're all going to remember this situation. And to me, it seems like we've split down really far apart as a country.
Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking about earlier, is that it was almost like these terrorists inadvertently gave this country a gift of unity. Like their intention was to divide, and cause chaos and everything, but we cleaned up all the wreckage by the following May and built the new tower. And the tower took forever, but it's up now. And there's a huge memorial there. And initially it was like, this is a terrible thing, but look how it brought the country together. But looking long term, did the terrorists accomplish a lot more than we, hoped that they would?
As far as dividing things.
Yeah.
I feel like people have I don't know if it's just our group. I haven't really talked to that many people about 9/11 and the aftermath of it. But I feel like since Trump became president, there's this romanticizing about the past and how together we used to be, and how things are just very divided right now. Not to say that I don't think that things are very divided, because obviously they are. But, after 9/11, there was a lot of unity, I feel, in a counterattack, and to find the people who did this. There was a lot of unity in that. But I remember watching the news when Congress was having the debate of should we go into Iraq. And I just remember seeing a lot of contention about that decision. I remember a bunch of hippies being like, these aren't the people who killed us. This is, war is not a good thing to do, blah, 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 blah. And,
I agree that
I feel like there's a lot of romanticizing the past, especially like the founding fathers. I feel like people like to romanticize them, like there were some united group, when really they almost hated each other in a lot of ways. Right.
No, but
they talked a lot of crap. They got into a lot of arguments. There had to be a lot of compromise. And that, I feel like maybe that's what's missing now, is there's less compromise. But yeah.
Well, and I think with the founding fathers, though, that's like the misconception is like, oh, the founding fathers were so great because they all got along. I think they were so great because they didn't get along, like you said, but had a common goal and compromised and worked together, and made something that was really great. I feel like that that only could have been made through a lot of argument and compromising and conflict on different sides of different issues. But yeah, I do agree. Like, if you think back, like watching Fox News in 2005 or 4 or whenever that was almost kind of silly. It was like the war on terror, like, and eagles flying like banners and things. It was just all this like hyper nationalist, like, we're America, we're so great, we're going to go kill the terrorists, which, that was our goal. But it was definitely a different time than it is now. But that's the question I want to ask you guys. Like, do you think the terrorists accomplished a goal? Like, if they were alive today, would they be like, yes, we did a good thing? Or do you think, yes, they'd be like, crap, like, our countries were occupied for 20 years, this many people died, like, which is, by some estimates, anywhere from 1 to 3 million people have died in the war on terror, mostly civilians. Huge amount of expense. Obviously, their goal was to get us out of the Middle East in the first place. Like, we were there a really long time.
I think that's a fundamental problem with the United States, is that a lot of times we look 8 years into the future or 4 years into the future. Other groups and organizations, and I'm not saying these guys are on board with that or not, but you can look at like the Chinese governments and some of the Asian, they look way further into the future than 8 years.
Yeah,
now, whether that's 25 years, 50 years, 100 years, they look a lot further into the future than I think we do. We look at the things that are on our plate right now rather than the buffet or whatever. That's a great analogy. Flawless.
At least there was food involved. But yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it too. Like, we really don't have, like, the most I can think of, like, with climate change, a lot of goals float around. Like, we want to do this by 2030 or by 2050 might be as far as like we get. But you don't ever hear like, what does America want to be in 100 years or 200 years? Like, what are we trying to accomplish? Like, and it seems to all roll back. Well, yeah, we want better cars or like cell phones that are cool or computers that are way fast. Like, okay, great. Like, but what does America like?
Right.
What
Yeah,
are we
you don't
be?
you don't hear that from a lot of people. I mean, but people who do have that mindset stand out, like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
25 years he wants people living on Mars, and
right.
He's doing a whole lot of things because he sees something in the future. But people like that are not the norm for sure.
But there are certain presidents, I think, that have thought that like that too. Like, for some reason, and I don't know why I have this impression, someone correct me, but I feel like Obama talked like that. He talked a lot more future than, say, Trump, or definitely more than Biden does right now. But like, there's a lot more future. Like, he put things in place, whether I agree with him or not doesn't matter. He put things in place that would affect things further down the line than his own administration and his own stuff. And I think that is what the terrorist groups are doing, is they're not just thinking with themselves in their lifetimes. They're thinking multi-generational. They're thinking, where are my kids going to be in this situation, and how can I further this situation?
But they're still idiots.
Yeah, they're still sand people from the Star Wars movie. I'm going to say that about 9 more times.
I have to hard disagree.
I know.
Disagree with you guys on this.
You don't have to laugh in our face. Just disagree.
Can disagree and not be like,
It's hilarious.
Yeah, anytime this,
I'm not like making fun of you. It's more just funny that. I guess I just don't think much of them or their plans.
I think you've caught the Kamala laugh.
Huh?
I think you've caught the Kamala laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what that would.
Is that a disease?
Yeah, Kamala. They're like,
the vice president.
They're like, 12 soldiers died today.
That's not
like,
real.
what are you laughing at?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Anyway. Go on. Tell us how dumb we are. Go.
anyways, I would imagine that in their minds, I mean, they're religious zealots, right? So in their minds, everything that they do has like an eternal perspective, I guess. But I just can't imagine you're flying in a plane into a building thinking, man, in 20 years, this is going to wreak hell on America. Yeah. I don't even think any of the divisiveness could be blamed on them. I think a lot of the divisiveness is mostly done to ourselves through social media. I mean, I do think that foreign actors like Russia and troll bots and stuff like that, I do think that that's a thing. I mean, obviously, in the investigation that you guys think was a hoax or whatever.
Who said that?
From the Mueller report.
Oh, you mean the hoax investigation?
The hoax report? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I don't know how you guys think about it, but anyways, some of the people that they found in that were paid by Russia to go and like sow distrust, and it wasn't just they're not just getting paid to like promote Trumpism. Some of them were getting paid to promote Bernie. Some of them were getting paid to promote Hillary. It wasn't necessarily to promote candidates. It was to promote divisiveness, right? And social media is already very divisive within itself. The platform just kind of lends itself to that.
If you go down this,
no, I really don't know if you could point to anything that terrorists have done. I mean, for the most part, I think when terrorists do things, for the most part, it makes us united against them because it makes us realize that there's a bigger enemy than
right,
the abortion issue or
and they're
whatever.
Cowardice idiots.
But
yeah,
if you keep going down that,
I don't know, cowardly is the right word I would use for it, but
big testicled idiots.
They're idiots.
Yeah. But here's the thing, Beagle. If you keep going down that logic, you're gonna like get off of Twitter and all the other social media. So you better watch out, because I know that's where you get your stuff.
But I agree with you. And
it's all my stuff.
If we look back at it, like we had this terrorist attack, they stole these planes and flew them into buildings. And immediately after, we were like, oh, that's dumb. We have to lock the cockpits and we have to metal detect everyone that comes in the airport. Problem solved, right? Is there going to be a really obvious, or is there already happening in a longer form kind of way, just like you said, this exploitation of the psyche or the thought process of the American people? Like, are foreign governments just like, is it even that malicious? Or are they just buying ads on Facebook or whatever? Like, we're like, oh, they made all these bots. Like, how many shell companies or whatever do they own, or does China own, that it's trying to influence the American people? And we're just like, what did my friends do today? And just kind of absorbing all this. Is that going to be, are we finally going to wake up and realize that that's like, we need to lock the cockpit somehow? Like we got to shut something down there so that thing doesn't happen.
No, I mean, I think it's more just opportunist. No.
I think that the only way
Eventually, I would imagine that there will be something that happens with, yeah.
I mean, what I'm getting at is we hear all the time that like the Pentagon is hacked by China, or Russia hacked A, B, and C, and it's like, what are we even doing about it? Maybe we are like hacking back a lot. I don't know, but it seems like in a lot of ways we've had a lot of vulnerabilities.
Yeah, we're giving everybody free identity theft protection for 2 years.
Yeah,
that helps it, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way to combat a bad guy with a social media is to have a good guy with a social media.
Oh, so you're saying I can't? I'm the good man that does nothing in this scenario?
No, I'm saying you need your own social media to fight the bad guy with the social media.
Oh, that's why I helped create this podcast where I can just spew my
your opinion all over the airwaves.
Exactly.
Okay. Hopefully you're doing your part then.
I hope so.
Yeah. The thing that scares me about Russia, I mean, I get what you're saying about hacks and stuff like that, and I would imagine, or at least I would hope, that we're intricate enough that we're doing something back to them. in some way. But for the most part, what scares me about Russia is their main export is fossil fuels, and the world is going away from fossil fuels. So I wonder how desperate they're going to be when their largest export goes away.
You know, it's an interesting, and this is
they could very easily become like another North Korea type. You know, we have nuclear bombs. We want money for it.
Right. One interesting thing about Russia, and this comes from somebody that actually lives in Russia that came here, and I was talking to her, so it's her opinion. But she was telling me that Russians that she knows and the people that she's like associated with actually like Western culture. Like it's like, I mean, I know it sounds silly, but it's kind of like people wearing Nike shirts and watching sports, and they actually like the Western culture. And I think that's probably the biggest problem that Russia has, is that they try to individuate themselves and do their own thing and make their own power. But the truth is the people, the grassroots, don't necessarily like that. And I think it mostly has to do with the internet. And I think the reason why China is going to be able to carry on with what they're doing a bit longer is because they control that a lot harder than Russia does.
Well, even long before the internet, one of the coolest things you can Google is Metallica Russia concert. I can't remember what city, but and
Moscow.
And what's the lead singer's name?
Les Claypool.
No, is it?
No, that's from Primus.
It's not Lars. Anyway?
Burned-faced guy.
There's an interview with him. They're like,
Kurt Tusher.
They're like, what's Kurt Tusher? They're like, what's the coolest concert you ever played? And he's like, oh, by far, this concert we played in Russia, the Iron Curtain just fell. So it was just barely everyone could listen to music now and go to concerts. And we went over played this concert, and you can see the footage. It's 500,000 people, all moshing in unison to Metallica. It's like one of the coolest like images you can like clips of anything you can see, and it just showed, just like you're saying, that like there are a lot of people that love, what this type of this freedom has to offer. It's not even necessarily like, oh, they love the music in America, but America has the music that it does is because it's totally free, and we don't regulate music in any way. And they had that opportunity for the first time, and I think it's kind of cool that they're like, I'm going with Metallica, yeah.
But I did hear a Justin Bieber song. I think we need to start regulating some stuff.
Yeah.
FCC,
exactly.
If you're listening.
The thing I was trying to get at is we just pulled out of Afghanistan, so this is kind of the end. Like what started with that, we heard all the audio just at the beginning of this episode of what kind of started this whole thing, and 20 years later, it's finally over. Do we have any closure, and where do we go from here?
I just want to say how interesting it is that when on 9/11, many of us were together. When we started bombing Iraq, we were together.
That's right.
At Delicate Arch.
Yep.
At the Arch, the sun was going down. Beagle was on the phone with his girlfriend, and that's when we heard through her that we started bombing, and then we are now together technically like 3 or 4 days after the war of Afghanistan ends.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting.
And about a week before, by the time you're listening to this, it'll be coming up on September 11th, the 20th anniversary of when that all went down. It is interesting that we were all together through a lot of that.
But anyways, back to your question.
But yeah, I was just asking, like, how do we move forward now? Like, we did a big war, spent a lot of money, killed a lot of terrorists. Like, moving forward, it's very likely that we're going to be attacked again. And if we are, like, what are we going to do about it? Like, are we going to go to war again? Are we going to make more preventative measures to stop terrorism? And what level of terrorist attack, will drive us to war again? And is that likely to happen?
I think part of that too, the big question in my mind is what level of attack or what level of a pandemic or what level of urgency would actually change. Like you were saying, oh, we need to lock the cabin door. But on a huge scale of society, like, okay, we need to knock this off. Like whatever that is. Like, we need to knock off this divisiveness. We need to knock off this. I don't know what it is, but that's the big question to me is how big of a problem do we have to confront as a country to have unity again, like Pearl Harbor? And is it a war, really, that it takes for us to get united? God, I hope not.
Yeah, it's kind of a...
I mean, a pandemic couldn't unite us. I don't see much uniting us anytime soon.
Yeah, pandemic certainly divided us.
Yeah, that's the thing is... It's interesting that the things that make the country great are also the things that can bring and invite a lot of division. The freedom of information that we have in the United States obviously makes it's a breeding ground for creativity and innovation and moving forward and progress. But on the other hand, having people being able to spew whatever information they want online creates a lot of division, like with the pandemic. You know, you got people coming out saying certain things about the vaccine or the virus or how, the efficacy of everything, and it's causing a lot of division. And people are digging their feet, deeper and deeper into the ground, the more the government tries to, quote unquote, help the people. And it's really the weird dichotomy that we have here in the United States.
Yeah, and it is true when you think back to it. Like if there wasn't any social media, if this pandemic had happened in 2005, I really don't think it would have been divisive. I think it'd just be like...
Oh, no, it definitely would have been divisive.
You think so?
Have you guys looked into the history of pandemics in America or pandemics anywhere when they happen?
Yeah, and you're talking about some people want to get vaccinated, some people don't, that kind of thing. But I don't think in our country it was
Well, they just argue on treatments. I read this thread from a historian yesterday about basically how America first discovered vaccines, because it actually came from Africa. And how they would solve getting smallpox, and then they brought that knowledge to America. And this
because they'd actually cut their kids' arms and transfer blood.
They would cut out part of the disease, and then they would put that into themselves.
Yeah.
And have their bodies fight it. And slowly, when the data came out about how much that prevents death of smallpox, more and more government, officials, just like George Washington forced his troops to get vaccinated. This has always caused division. I don't know if it will ever not cause division. Honestly, I don't even get the division. I just look at the data and the statistics, and I'm like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how this doesn't make sense to people, but yeah.
I think
this same stuff has happened over and over again. I don't know if it'll ever stop.
What I hope and what I hope for in this country is alien type unity, like alien invasion unity. I'm talking Godzilla type unity, like something that big that happens that we actually come together, not just as a nation, but as a world. That's what we need.
Yeah.
I love you because of Godzilla.
That's what's interesting too, is I remember, I don't know if I heard this on my mission.
Cloverfield type unity is what I'm talking about here. Cloverfield.
Right. But,
giant squid type thing on a ship in the ocean type unity.
Yeah, so it's an interesting...
Flying spaghetti monster.
Zombies.
No, I heard
type
on my...
unity.
Zombie herds.
On my mission, do you guys know what the date of the least criminal activity in America? Like the least amount of homicides, the least amount of bank robberies?
12th,
like, nope.
2002.
Easter Sunday.
Nope.
Easter Sunday?
Nope.
I bet it was right after World War II.
The day that the Joseph Smith's first vision.
Oh, that's it.
Oh, found
Ding,
it.
ding, ding, ding,
Close.
ding. Why don't you tell us?
No, it's
Joseph Smith's second vision?
The day that we landed on the moon.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
And so,
You mean filmed?
no,
You mean
it's
filmed in the basement of
Yeah, the
Hollywood
day we
studio?
filmed the moon.
correct. Yes, we should make a lot more stuff to bring us together. No, but it's interesting to me because it's like, I think a lot of people have this idea of like, oh, we need this enemy, we need this disaster to bring us together. And I actually think that, not that I necessarily disagree, but it causes, I think, divisiveness in solutions to that problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in something that's like profoundly interesting, like us landing on Mars,
It's a common goal.
or well, it's just I think it gives hope. I think it makes us feel like we're, like the pale blue dot commentary is like it makes us realize how much bigger we are than just this current moment in time, right?
Yeah. No, and I've said before, if you guys haven't watched the series Away on Netflix with Hilary Swank, I highly recommend it because it's pretty much like, the journey to Mars and everything. And I used to be like, oh, going to Mars is dumb. It's a waste of time. People are going to just die up there doing it. But they portrayed it in this way where they had this multinational crew that went. And so when they landed, it was like the whole world was like way in on that. And I really do think that could be a strong unifier.
That's how it would be.
Yeah.
Because it would take the whole world.
Yeah, but the problem is cool. Like you said, there were very few homicides the day we landed on the moon. But like then that was it, and maybe there is some lingering unity after that for a bit, but I really do feel like there has to be some type of long-term goal to bring people together. But
So are you guys thinking like 1984, like we were always at war with, what was it, Asteria?
Eurasia.
Yeah.
And Pacifica.
Oh, like to unify, like some kind of propaganda.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. So all of us were camping up at Clear Creek when this happened, except for the spiritual man in front of us.
There.
You were there? Were you in Cave TV?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was it. So we were all there.
All of us were.
Yeah.
And was Bolt?
I don't know. He's dead now.
I can't remember.
We don't know where he went.
Not.
Right now,
He said he had to go.
He's sitting in his car. Oh, somebody over here is saying he was there, and she is an encyclopedia of dates. So,
So literally all five of us were there on 9/11. 6 of us, 4.
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
And then when we started bombing Iraq.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
Crazy.
Yeah, and I've told you guys before, but when the Boston bombings happened, I was backpacking with the youth up in New Hampshire when I lived back east.
In Boston, right?
Well, it
You
happened
were living in Boston.
I was living in Boston,
But you were in
but
New
out
Hampshire.
of town. So it was like another event where I came home and was like, whoa, holy cow. Like I didn't experience it in real time like other people. So hopefully the beginning of this episode, you get to kind of experience that a little more. Hopefully this September 11th, everyone can have a little bit of closure knowing that we're done. I hope over there, like it, as ugly as it was, there has to be a lot of good that we did and that our soldiers did over there. It's kind of one of those things like, it's a lost cause, but it doesn't mean that any small thing you do isn't of great value. There's obviously a lot of people over there that we've befriended and shown, a different side of life that maybe they hadn't looked at before. And maybe a lot of our people that were over there now look at life a little differently, having experienced that other culture and that other life, and are going to bring that back here. Hopefully we killed a lot of terrorists, and so some of them are afraid of being terrorists now because we killed so many. But ironically, we probably created a lot more too. I don't know.
That's my fear, is that exact thing, is the child that lost their parent, and then 20 years from now, they are the new Taliban or the new terrorists.
Seeking revenge against the United States.
Yep. And what, 20 years from now, how long did they plan September 11th? We've been over there 20 years. How many more terrorists did we make that are just counting the days, doing the planning? And just like we said earlier, you can't stop it. Like there's no regulation. There's nothing that you can do to, if somebody wants to hurt people, they're going to do it.
Right.
And so my feeling is the way we combat that by saying, we've got lots of bombs, we're going to come get you? Or is it to actually say, like, we're going to live our life just the same the day after you bomb us as the day before? And that's how we're going to show you. We're just not going to be afraid. You can blow up Los Angeles. You can blow up Salt Lake. You can blow up New York. We're just going to keep going. And, it's not going to affect us. We're not going to fear it. Is that actually the way that we fight back?
Do you guys remember? So Vietnam happened because we were scared of communism, right? And France wanted some land, basically.
Those dicks. Yeah, it was France over there first, wasn't it?
They wanted to claim that land. Yeah,
they were in there.
We were afraid of communism.
That's right. We went over to help France. They were already there, and after we were there a while, they left and left us with the whole problem. Thanks, France.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know all the details on us pulling out and who pulled out first or anything like that. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, something like 1 million lives lost. I don't know how much money, not much gained, right? Do you know what our relationship with them now is?
With who?
Vietnam.
With Vietnam.
It's really good, as I understand it. That's a...
They export I think something like $8 billion to us. So
yeah,
we have a economic relationship, right? In my opinion, that's the only way to solve foreign issues.
Money.
You have to have some kind of interdependence.
Yeah.
If they had something to export to us, how much less willing would they be to attack us when their economy relies on us?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I would hope that
and so that's the only thing that I can think of to bring the world together to get rid of wars is interdependence.
And that's the thing I really hope for looking at this is we look at it the Taliban just took over. They have all this military now. It's so horrible. But is the Taliban going to be the new Vietnam? Are we going to get along great in 10 years?
Nope.
Maybe not. I hope so. I hope what we're looking at right now is just a misunderstanding of something great to come.
What can they export to us that we can consume?
Terrorists.
Goats?
Terrorists. No,
they could export terrorists to us, and then we could bomb North Korea or something.
Use them as soldiers.
Oh, I see. That's messed up.
Just there's an edit.
No, we would pay for them, obviously, and then they would,
or not
fly buildings into North Korea.
Yeah.
No, they don't have much.
Nobody's in the buildings.
Yeah, nobody's in the buildings anyway.
Yeah, but I'm hopeful that there's some other way. And see, you look at this and I know we've all been hearing a lot of ragging on they really botched this pullout. But you would think at least that they would have kept some control over like the chips that are in all the Humvees and helicopters and stuff.
Or the keys.
So, yeah.
Take the keys with them.
Exactly. So they can just be like, hey, if A, B, or C happens, all your stuff's going to shut down suddenly.
Or just
and
put
good luck
bombs.
trying to put a new chip in because it blows up.
Put bombs in all of the vehicles.
You know what I thought of is a strategy that could happen. You just leave all this equipment, right? And then in a month, you just fly over there and blow up all the United States stuff because anyone that's in there is probably a terrorist.
Yeah.
Just blow up all the helicopters that are there, all the tanks, all the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's a perfect perfect
That
target.
would probably only create more terrorism.
Yeah, and that's really getting back to
So,
it. It's like
in my opinion, as far as like that, because that part of the world really doesn't have much in the way of resources, and that's where technology that we develop here is so important, right? Because, let's say we could create a plant like a carrot, where
weed.
It's maybe where it's a GMO that can survive well in their soil without water or whatever. I'm not sure exactly why stuff can't grow there, but just some plant that we could,
they're scared.
Manufacture that can actually survive in their environment, and then they can start exporting that.
Yeah.
Well, this would be a good place to test for Mars, right? Nothing can survive there. So
yeah.
Right. Elon Musk.
The Afghan Space Authority.
We'll just drop some seeds off in planes. Be like, try these out.
Wow.
But yeah, it's pretty wild. Like you look at it like if the United States, with all its power and might, goes to war with somebody who's drastically smaller in like money and military and influence and everything like that, like what other recourse does that group have? You know what I mean? Like what if you're fighting somebody small? It's kind of like if you look back at and I'm not saying I'm about to offend a lot of people.
Me. Yes. Go.
Yes.
So I'm equivocating terrorists with colonial militia, but when we look back, like we were the underdog that played dirty because we had to. Like we wouldn't go stand out in a line and be honorable. Like we hid behind the logs and shot people and ambushed people because that's the only way we could win. And if we force groups of people into that, I think that's always what's going to happen. With the difference being, like, if it's a political thing, we could pretty much go and crush anybody politically. Like, oh, you need to do this because of a political reason. But we're never, and I don't know, I'd be interested to see this. I don't know of any historical instance where a religious group of people who felt religiously persecuted just laid down and said, okay, I will do what you want now. Like, if it's that deep, it's never going to end. We're never going to be able to compel anybody if their basis for fighting is a religious basis. But anyway, thanks for joining us on the American Fort podcast tonight as we commemorate the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. Hopefully we've all, got a little glimpse from what it was like to be there that day. I know we were all there that day. Well, probably most of us. I don't know. We might have some post-teens listening by now, but hopefully we remember the good things, the unity of the country, the family that we were with and probably held close, and the perspective on life that we probably normally took for granted, but really probably had a time to reflect, and hopefully it changed our lives for the better. In the name of...
Don't end it that way. Phil, thank you for tackling this.
Jake.
Thanks for tackling this difficult subject. It's not the usual Benny Hill slapstick comedy that we do on this program, but definitely worth it. And thank you.
Yeah.
Can we tell jokes about 9/11 now?
Yeah. So what's your favorite 9/11
too soon.
joke?
Too soon.
It is too soon.
We have to wait till the 20th
anniversary. You got to wait till the next generation.
I thought we could come up with some good ones, and then I listened to that stuff that I made, and I'm
you're
like,
probably not.
There's probably never going to be a time to joke. I don't know.
Like, for example, remember that really good Pearl Harbor joke?
No.
Yeah, there isn't
There
any,
was
because it's not okay.
There are some good 9/11 jokes here. I got.
Nope.
Oh, are there
No,
really?
there's not.
Give me the best one.
And good night.
For our closer.
And good night.
Good night. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can cut it there if we need to.
What? Why are the Twin Towers mad?
Oh God, here we go.
They ordered pepperoni pizza, but all they got was plain.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices, secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. And on behalf of the American people, I thank the world for its outpouring of support. America will never forget the sounds of our national anthem playing at Buckingham Palace, on the streets of Paris, and at Berlin's Brandenburg Gate. We will not forget South Korean children gathering to pray outside our embassy in Seoul.
Scarcely visible from cameras in downtown Kabul, Afghanistan's capital, but it involved a huge strike force, the United States and Britain firing 50 Tomahawk cruise missiles, 2 carriers sending 25 strike aircraft over Afghanistan, and another force of 15 heavy bombers coming from bases on land. The aircraft included several B-2 stealth bombers that flew non-stop from Missouri. Airfields and radar at nearly every major city were attacked, along with dozens of other targets. Conflict's most unusual twist, the U.S. also sent 2 C-17 cargo planes loaded with tons of food and medicine. These supplies were airdropped into remote parts of Afghanistan while bombs were falling elsewhere. There are to be more food drops in the days to come. As in previous conflicts, the U.S. is also dropping thousands of leaflets on cities and towns and is beaming radio broadcasts and giving us trying to explain
at least the chance and opportunity of transforming Afghanistan from a failed state reliant on terrorism and drugs to a state where its people, as I say, at least have the opportunity, the prospect of a better future.
There is no single thing that is going to suddenly make it that threat disappear.
Believes that this was a horrible and civilized series of actions against the civilized world has come together in this
instant
coalition
retaliation
and taken this campaign
isolated strikes
against terror to Afghanistan.
Americans should not expect one battle,
destroy the Taliban,
but a lengthy
to bring
campaign,
Osama bin Laden to justice,
unlike any other
but also to
we have
participate
ever
in a
seen.
broader campaign against terrorism.
The evidence we have gathered all points to a collection of loosely affiliated terrorist organizations known as Al-Qaeda. The terrorists practice a fringe form of Islamic extremism that has been rejected by Muslim scholars. This group and its leader, a person named Osama bin Laden, are linked to many other organizations in different countries.
Bin Laden may remain in
aiding and abetting
Afghanistan, possibly
the
in the
Taliban
Tora Bora
regime
area.
is
Also
committing
widely
murder.
reported is the possibility
And
that
tonight, the United States of America makes the following demands
in fact,
on the
moved to
Taliban.
Pakistan. That's what
Deliver
I was
to
referring
United
At this
States
point, we
authorities
simply
all
don't
the
know. We
leaders of
simply don't know
Al-Qaeda
the probability, I guess I'd say, that he has left the country. Certainly, it's a possibility.
U.S.
that,
forces
bin
believe
Laden has
Osama bin
left
Laden is hiding is al-Qaeda's only remaining stronghold. Today, it appeared to be crumbling as the role of U.S. Special Forces expanded. ABC's Dan Harris reports now from the front lines of Tora Bora.
Detainees at Guantanamo Bay. What's wrong with formally applying the Geneva Convention to them?
I've at the questions about the detainees in Guantanamo Bay. I had a very interesting meeting this morning with my national security team. We're discussing all the
Afghan soldiers
legal ramifications of how we characterize. A couple of things we agree on. One, they will not be treated as prisoners of war. They're illegal combatants. Secondly, they will be treated humanely. And I'll figure out. I'll listen to all the
enemy or
legalisms
and it isn't
announce my decision when I make it. But we're in total agreement on how to on whether or not
they have their
these
place. Our drones are terrific. You know, you can shoot a drone down and you're not killing a guy. That's the point of the whole thing. And the drones are fast and they can do a lot of the grunt work that was done before by pilots. But
weapons of mass destruction very seriously.
Dozens of biological
I
agents
remember the fact
causing
that he has
diseases
invaded
such
two
as
countries
gas,
before.
gangrene, plague, typhus. For
I know
example, they
for
can
a fact
produce
that he's
anthrax
poisoned
and
his own
botulinum toxin. In fact, they can produce
He doesn't
enough
believe in
dry biological agent
the worth of
in
each
a single
individual.
month to kill thousands upon thousands
He doesn't
of
believe
people.
in
This hour,
public
Dry
dissent.
agent
American
of this
and
type
coalition forces are in the
is the
early
most
stages of
lethal
military
form of human
operations
beings.
to disarm
By
Iraq,
1998,
to free its people,
UN
and
experts
to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war.
Rome, and in scores
These
of
are
other
opening
cities
stages
took to the streets
of what
to
will be a
protest
broad
against
and concerted
any U.S.-led
campaign.
invasion of Iraq. It
More
was
than
an
35
enormous
countries
display of
have given
anti-war
crucial
and, in some cases, anti-American sentiment. We start tonight with Hillary Brown in London for one of the largest rallies
at a fair trial, because he is responsible for all the massacres and the crimes in Iraq. Ammar al-Hakim is a Shiite, and of course the Shiite people suffered greatly under his regime. Quick review for those of you just joining us. Saddam Hussein was captured last night at just before 8:30 p.m. Iraqi time by Special Task Force 121, led by the 4th Infantry Division, and it was Wolverine Brigade Combat Team Number 1 that uncovered the hole in which he was hiding, disheveled, bearded. There were new clothes around, but he was quite bedraggled, and he chatted a lot as he came out of the hole without firing a shot. And now we presume he is being interrogated by his American captors, probably at the Baghdad
some kind of a
International
departure or arrivals hall. He falls to the ground. You see a gun quite clearly come out of his hands. The person runs away, presumably trying to get away from the attacker.
Busiest
and then
airport.
you see the
3
attacker
suicide attackers carrying out a deadly siege on Tuesday night. The coordinated attack captured by airport
So I climbed the stairs. I was getting pizza. When I heard the first bullets, I looked across and I saw the people running. And I realized it's an attack. My instinct kicked in. I ran
tragedy for the
as fast
United
as I
States.
could
In
toward
Spain
that area
today,
she was in,
March
which was the
11th,
corner
now
of the
has
city.
similar infamy. In Madrid this morning, more than 190 people were killed and more than 1,400 injured when 10 separate bombs ripped through commuter trains and railway platforms during rush hour. The scene was horrific. Bodies and body
reasonably
parts
clear
everywhere.
that there have been
Spanish Prime Minister called
a
it
series
simply
of terrorist
mass
attacks
murder.
in London. There are obviously
Two-thirds of Americans
casualties,
say it's not
both
worth
people
fighting.
that have died and people seriously
So
injured.
you don't care what the American people think?
No, I think you cannot be blown off course by the
did not oppose all wars,
fluctuations in the public opinion.
I was a
polls.
strong
There
supporter
has, in fact,
of the
been
war in
fundamental
Afghanistan.
change and transformation.
But I said I
and
could not
improvement to the
support a
better.
dumb war, a rash war in Iraq. I worried about a U.S. occupation of undetermined length at undetermined cost with undetermined consequences in the heart of the Muslim world.
Yet I've always
I
acted
pleaded
with
that
the
we
best
finish
interests of
the
our
fight
country
with
in
bin
mind.
Laden and
I have
al-Qaeda.
followed my conscience.
The political
and
winds
done
were
what I
blowing in a
thought was
different
right.
direction. The president was determined
There's
to
legitimate
go to
debate
war.
about many of these
And there was
decisions.
just one obstacle, the U.S. Congress.
But there can be little debate about
9
the
days
results.
after I spoke, that obstacle
America
was removed.
has gone more than 7
Congress
years
rubber
without
stamped the
another
rush to
terrorist
war,
attack
giving
on
the
our
president the
soil.
broad and open-ended
This is a
authority he
tribute to
uses
those who
to this
toil
day.
night and day to keep us safe.
With that vote, Congress became co-author of a catastrophic
Good
war.
evening, I'm Terry Moran. Fort Hood, home of heroes, is tonight quiet. It is the quiet of a community of soldiers and their families in shock and sorrow, the quiet of a crime scene, the quiet after a massacre, what is believed to be the deadliest mass shooting at a U.S. Army base ever. It happened early this afternoon. At least 12 people have been killed, many more wounded. Most of the casualties, soldiers, some of them preparing for deployment overseas. And they were targeted by one of their own, it appears. The suspect shooter, Major Nidal, Malik Hassan, an Army psychiatrist. There were reports earlier that he had been killed during the rampage.
To the American people and to the world. The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children. We had located bin Laden hiding within a compound deep inside Pakistan. Last week, I determined that we had enough intelligence to take action and authorized an operation to get Osama bin Laden and bring him to justice. Today, at my direction, the United States launched a targeted operation against that compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. A small team of Americans carried out the operation with extraordinary courage and capability. No Americans were harmed. They took care to avoid civilian casualties. After a firefight, they killed Osama bin Laden and took custody of his body.
Folded today, signaling the end of one of the longest wars in our history. Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta accepted the colors in Baghdad as he formally closed America's nearly 9-year involvement in Iraq.
For the final time, the colors were presented at U.S. military headquarters in Iraq. The ceremony marked the official end of mission. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta took stock of the treasure spent, more than $800 billion, and the blood spilled during the last 9 years.
Today in particular, we remember the nearly 4,500 brave Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice for their country.
Now the war is in the hands of the historians, who will weigh the toppling of a brutal dictator against a war fought over weapons of mass destruction that were never found. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Martin Dempsey, perhaps mindful of the war's unpopularity at home, offered his own view of a mission accomplished.
The next time I come back, I'm going to have to be invited in. I'm going to have to be invited by the Iraqi government, and I kind of like that.
With headquarters now closed, over the next several days, the last of the U.S. troops...
It was a chaotic and terrifying scene. 20 gun-wielding attackers storming the American consulate in Benghazi overnight. Nearly a dozen Americans were inside, guarded only by Libyan security. For nearly 20 minutes, the Libyan guards exchanged fire with the attackers and hurled a firebomb inside. The militants burned down at least one building. Ambassador Stevens was either killed by smoke inhalation or, more likely, in a car trying to escape with 2 guards, which may have been hit by a mortar. The other
U.S.
American
embassies, U.S.
was
military,
killed from
all
smoke.
put on alert, bracing for a possible violent backlash. A top-secret report about to be revealed. Inside, how the CIA tortured prisoners. Let's get right to ABC's Chief Global Affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz. And Martha, we're going to hear some very graphic detail about what happened, and in some cases, even when there was no information gleaned.
That's right, David. It's why those diplomatic and military facilities around the globe are bracing for potential violence targeting Americans, because the report is that explosive. Despite the risk, the White House said today it supports the release of the report, described as extremely graphic, with shocking detail about waterboarding and other interrogation methods the CIA conducted during the dark days after 9/11. As one person familiar with the report said, it will sound bad. It is harsh. Torture sometimes continuing even after interrogators concluded there was no more information to gain. Waterboarding, the simulated drowning demonstrated here, was halted years ago. But the majority Senate Intelligence Committee findings conclude that the CIA misled the Bush administration about the methods and the results of the coercive interrogation conducted at so-called black sites outside of the U.S. The former president is standing by the CIA.
These are patriots. And whatever the report says, if it diminishes their contributions to our country, it is way off base.
The attack appears timed for maximum impact. Just before 2:50 p.m., this is the viewpoint seen by many of the 26,000 marathon runners who are approaching the finish line. The first of the two explosions rocks the sidewalk along the course. White smoke blasting into the air, blowing metal barricades into the street, spewing shrapnel into crowds gathered.
Blew the whistle on the National Security Agency and the expanding U.S. surveillance state. On Sunday, the Guardian newspaper revealed the source of its explosive series on the NSA to be a 29-year-old former CIA technical assistant named Edward Snowden. For the past 4 years, Snowden's been working at the NSA as an employee of various outside contractors, including Booz Allen Hamilton and Dell. Most recently, he was working at the NSA office in Hawaii. On May 20th, he boarded a plane bound for Hong Kong, where he's remained ever since. Since Wednesday, The Guardian has published a series of articles based on information provided by Snowden. First, The Guardian revealed the National Security Agency is collecting telephone records of millions of Verizon customers under a secret court order issued in April. Then, The Guardian revealed the existence of a top-secret program codenamed PRISM, where the NSA obtained access to the central servers of 9 major Internet companies, including Google, Microsoft, Apple, Yahoo, and Facebook. Then on Friday, The Guardian exposed how President Obama had ordered his senior national security and intelligence officials to draw up a list of potential overseas targets for U.S. cyber attacks. And then The Guardian revealed details about an NSA data mining tool called Boundless Informant that details and even maps by country the voluminous amount of information it collects from computer and telephone networks. A top-secret NSA global heat map shows that in March 2013, the agency collected 97 billion pieces of intelligence from computer networks worldwide. The NSA most frequently targeted Iran, Pakistan, Jordan, Egypt, and India. The Boundless Informant documents also showed the agency collected almost 3 billion pieces of intelligence from U.S. computer networks over a 30-day period ending in March of 2013.
Has clearly become the terrorist attack that has reverberated around the world.
From this angle, it's even more terrifying. New video showing the Kouachi brothers just moments after the Charlie Hebdo massacre. We have avenged the Prophet Muhammad, they shout, and calmly reload. Police arrive. The brothers open fire, sending the squad car into reverse. The brothers drive at the police and escape. 3 police officers were killed in last week's terror spree. Today, they were given the country's highest honors. In Pakistan today, very different prayers. At a symbolic funeral for the killers, embraced here as heroes. Blasphemers against the Prophet are the enemy of all Muslims, said a local politician. But Charlie Hebdo is sticking to its freedom to offend. The cover of its new edition, out tomorrow, has a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad. The press run, an unprecedented 3 million copies. Counterterrorism officials here warn they can't prevent every future attack without becoming a totalitarian society. But France is starting to reconsider some of its traditional freedoms.
Call for the deployment of U.S. ground combat forces to Iraq or Syria. It is not the authorization of another ground war, like Afghanistan or Iraq. The 2,600 American troops in Iraq today largely serve on bases.
Obviously,
and yes, they face the risks that come with service in any dangerous environment.
Mistake,
but they do not have a
the war in
mission.
Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
But so you still think he should be impeached?
I think it's my turn, isn't it?
You do whatever you want. You call it whatever you want. I want to tell you, they lied.
Okay.
They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
Panic tonight on Barcelona's most famous pedestrian street. They were running from a van that plowed into crowds on the street. Police responded quickly.
235 people are now reported to have been killed in that militant attack on a crowded mosque in Egypt.
The Egyptian president is holding an emergency security meeting. The assault happened in the northern Sinai region when armed men stormed the building and detonated a bomb during Friday prayers. It's the deadliest attack in the 3-year
There is a major change in U.S.
in
military
Sinai.
strategy. Today, more than 16 years after the 9/11 attacks, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said terrorism is no longer the #1 priority. David Martin has more on what is.
These mock ships, the size of American destroyers, are laid out in China's Missile Impact Test Range on the edge of the Gobi Desert. They are the mirror image of the U.S. Navy base in Yokosuka, Japan, headquarters of the 7th Fleet. You can see an impact crater next to one of the mock ships, close enough to have destroyed all 3. Pentagon officials cite this analysis by a U.S. Navy officer assigned to a Washington think tank as one of many reasons China and Russia have replaced terrorism as the primary focus of the new national defense strategy. Maintaining a military advantage over China and Russia is now Defense Secretary Mattis's top priority.
Today, the Taliban welcomed an announcement by President Trump that all U.S. troops should leave Afghanistan by the end of the year. But there are questions about how that announcement was received by the U.S. military and by U.S. and Afghan negotiators who are in peace talks right now. And Nick Schifrin joins me to explain. So, Nick, what exactly did the president and his national security advisor have to say about this?
3 times, Judy, in the last 24 hours, the White House indicated it wanted to accelerate the withdrawal from Afghanistan. First time was yesterday afternoon. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien visiting Las Vegas. Nevada is a swing state. And for the first time, he said a specific timetable to reduce the troops.
The Trump administration announced it would withdraw 2,000 troops from Afghanistan by mid-January. Critics say the decision risks putting peace and progress in the country in danger. MTS Tayab has the story.
The scarred streets of Kabul are shattered yet again by rocket fire, forcing a group of schoolgirls to run for their lives after the capital's heavily fortified diplomatic area was targeted. Few here were spared in the attack claimed by a regional branch of ISIS, including this woman's grandson. She asks, what was the crime of this innocent child? He was just eating breakfast at home. Why do we get killed? We aren't the government. The assault happened just hours before a meeting between Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Taliban negotiators in Qatar. It follows the outgoing Trump administration's announcement it plans to withdraw 2,000 troops from Afghanistan by mid-January. Raising concerns about the
President George W. Bush informed our nation the United States military had begun strikes on terrorist training camps in Afghanistan. It was just weeks after the terrorist attack on our nation that killed 2,977 innocent souls, that turned Lower Manhattan into a disaster area, destroyed parts of the Pentagon, and made hallowed ground of a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and sparked an American promise that we would never forget. We went to Afghanistan in 2001 to root out al-Qaeda, to prevent future terrorist attacks against the United States planned from Afghanistan. Our objective was clear. The cause was just. Our NATO allies and partners rallied beside us. And I supported that military action along with overwhelming majority of the members of Congress. More than 7 years later, in 2008, weeks before we swore the oath of office, President Obama and I were about to swear, President Obama asked me to travel to Afghanistan and report back on the state of the war in Afghanistan. I flew to Afghanistan to the Kunar Valley, a rugged mountainous region on the border with Pakistan. What I saw in that trip reinforced my conviction that only the Afghans have the right and responsibility to lead their country, and that more and endless American military force could not create or sustain a durable Afghan government. I believed that our presence in Afghanistan should be focused on the reason we went in the first place, to ensure Afghanistan would not be used as a base from which to attack our homeland again. War in Afghanistan. We did that. The longest war in American objective. We completed one of the biggest airlifts in history, with more than 120,000 people evacuated to safety. That number is more than double
largest non-combatant airlift in American history.
I'm here to
announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission.
123,000 people flown out of the now Taliban-controlled country. The Taliban firing
the extraordinary success of this mission was due to the incredible skill, bravery, and selfless courage of the United States military and our diplomats and intelligence professionals.
The final plane with the last remaining U.S. troops on board left.
The longest war,
It's
America's
been 2
longest
decades
war
of military
is
deployments.
over, Michael. This is a significant
2,461 Americans
in
killed.
history, even though we knew it was
1,144
coming.
NATO
What has
allies
happened is
killed.
that military forces have
More than
beaten the president's
48,000
designated
Afghans
deadline.
killed. 300,000 Afghan soldiers trained only to collapse when confronted.
And
About
still,
$1 trillion
women
spent
and men of the United
and
States
more to
military,
come to care
our
for the
diplomatic corps, and
Afghanistan
intelligence professionals
handed back
did their
to the
job
very
and did
same
it well.
Islamic fundamentalists
Risking
the
their
United
lives
States drove from
not
power
for professional
just
gain.
weeks after
non-combatant
9/11.
evacuation
A
operation
generation of
from
Afghans
Not the mission of war,
flying
but
in
the mission
support
of
of
mercy.
combat aircraft from the Air Force and the
20
Navy.
service members were
as well
wounded in the
as
service of this
incredible
mission.
support.
13 heroes gave their lives.
hoping to etch their
I was just at Dover Air Force Base for the dignified transfer. We owe them and their families a debt of gratitude we can never repay, but we should never, ever, ever forget. These American service members who gave their lives, it's an overused word, but it's totally appropriate here, were heroes. Heroes who've been engaged in a dangerous, selfless mission to save the lives of others. They're a part of an airlift, an evacuation effort unlike any seen in history. They're a part of the bravest, most capable, the most selfless military on the face of the earth. And they're part of simply what I call the backbone of America. They're the spine of America. The best the country has to offer.